That was me just doing a bit.
I was actually wondering, I'm like, could he possibly stand that still? That was funny. How you doing?
I do a whole bunch of things. I do man trapped in a box. I do me walking up and down stairs. It's, you know, one of these days I'll pull out. If you ever want to have the non-art discussion, you just want to see me do all of my pantomime, I'll do it.
That was too good. No, I seriously couldn't tell. I'm like, wait, is he screwing with me? Just standing there completely still. It only took a sec to realize it wasn't that. Anyway, that's funny, man. Good. How you been, man?
I've been great. I've been really great.
Yeah,
I'm fantastic. How are you doing?
I'm good. Any traveling lately?
Yeah, in fact, this today's artist is a result of Micah not having like a super in-depth artist that I want to talk about because I have a lot of information about him, but because I went to a place and saw a ton of his work and my mind was blown. So I've been in Toulouse.
Really?
I was in Toulouse, France.
No kidding. Yeah, I haven't even heard of this guy.
In fact, I'll tell you the story why I was in Toulouse, France, which is a good one in and of itself. Before we even get into Henri Martin, I found this painting by an American painter who painted in France, whose name was Simmons. Well, I'll show you his work another time. It was coming up for auction in this small auction house in Toulouse, France. Now, Toulouse is not a major tourist hub for most people going to France, but it's the fourth largest city in France. So I think in size it goes Paris, Marseille, Lyon, and then Toulouse. But Toulouse is famous because it's the center for Airbus, which makes all the planes. And I think for the European Union Space Agency. So there are a lot of international people in Toulouse. But it's only about the size of Salt Lake City, where we live. And it is very agricultural. So they've got an old town, and then they've got this just lots of farms around it. And to have this American painting by a guy named Simmons that was a beautiful 19th century painting that had been in the Paris Salon, I thought, I'm not going to go there today. I'm just going to bid over the phone. And then I look at the rest of the auction. And the rest of the auction is all works by Thomas Butler. Thomas Butler, who I wouldn't be surprised if Theodore Butler. I said Thomas Butler. Theodore Earl Butler. Theodore Earl Butler was an American who traveled to France, became an acolyte of Claude Monet, married Monet's daughter, then became kind of the father of American Impressionism, taught in New York for many years, moved back to France, lived the rest of his life basically like a Frenchman. And this was the biggest part of his estate that had ever come up for sale because one of his descendants had sold a family house without emptying out all the rooms. And in France, the rule is that if you sell the house, no matter what is left in the house, it becomes the property of the new owners. So the new owners buy the house, open up a closed storage room, and find tons of paintings, journals, and historic photos that have never been printed of Monet and of his time in Giverny, which is where Monet kind of like does his garden and settles the rest of his life. So I fly to France with like a week's notice in Toulouse. I'm the only American or English speaker, and I speak French, but I'm not native French speaker. I'm the only one there bidding, and I'm bidding against the Monet family for a lot of Theodore Earl Butlers. And I've met the Monet family, and bid against them, and I got almost everything out of the auction. I bought most things.
Are you kidding me?
I'm gonna have a major show on Theodore Earl Butler and Monet. None of the paintings are by Monet, but there are photos and a lot of Monet kind of memorabilia stuff. And I'll tell you, maybe my favorite thing. It's not worth the most, but this I can't think of. Do I have it here? Oh, I'll have to show it to you later. I got this. There's two sheets of paper, one in French and one in English, that was sent to Monet and Theodore Earl Butler from John Singer Sargent for Sargent's recipe for fig pudding.
No way.
No, it's hilarious. It's a note from Sargent that says, in French and in English, this is how you make my favorite dessert, and we're gonna call it Sargent pudding, Sargent fig pudding.
Dude, that's so cool.
Isn't that cool?
That is so cool.
It was a great trip. I've been to Toulouse before, but I never got to spend this much time there. I was there for I flew in I left here on a Monday, got there on a Tuesday, bid all day Wednesday, had to wait for the wire for all the things that I bought to show up on Friday. So I had Thursday and Friday to hang out. And then I flew out at like 5 a.m. on Saturday morning.
Dude, you got the craziest life, man.
Thanks, buddy.
That's wild.
It was wild. And I got to tell you, I just fell in love with Toulouse.
Really?
I fell in love with Toulouse. I've been to a lot of cities in France. And, France is just a beautiful place in general. I don't need to be, it's not going to be a surprise to anybody listening, but there is something about Toulouse. And I'll tell you, the thing that blew me away, the moment I really knew I was in love with it was I went to their local municipal building, which is the kind of the seat of their local government, their mayor, their town council. And you walk in and there is the most incredible, that's the building. Yeah, that building that you just were like, so that's one of the fountains.
Oh, that's so
and they
beautiful.
call it the Ville Rose, the rose or pink city. Because it's all of the streets and many of the buildings have got this this red clay which comes from the local river that was used to make the city. And so the city has got this kind of pinkish hue everywhere you go.
So you were telling me that Paris, because of the war, was no older than Salt Lake City, basically.
Well,
and
okay. Yeah. So go ahead.
Well, is that the case here? Well, maybe you need to clarify that. My history,
I will clarify. So the story is that Paris has its very old areas that are still there from, over 1,000 years, right? But in the 19th century, under Napoleon III, who was the nephew of Napoleon, they went through this dramatic rebuilding of Paris.
Oh, I misunderstand.
And that took place in the late 1850s to the 1870s and 80s.
Oh, I don't know why I thought it had to do with World War II or something. Oh my gosh, I'm so ignorant.
They entered a war with Prussia in the 1870s, which also had its effect, and the Sacré-Cœur and other things were built after that as a direct result of the war. But Paris, as we know it today, you're right. You're right with the overall thought that the Paris as we know today is a mid-19th century construction. And you could say the same for much of France, is that a lot of the principal cities, and that's the municipality building right there. A lot of those cities were rebuilt in the mid 19th century, and that's when economically France was doing very, very well.
So Toulouse is not that old either, then?
No, Toulouse, as a city, its roots go way back to, ancient times.
No, I mean
there
the
were
architecture,
always people populated on the river banks, right? But the city itself, you'd probably say that most of the buildings are from 1830s to 1900, and probably the majority of them like 1870 to 1880 and 1890.
Wild. That's such a waste. It feels like such a waste. I mean, it's still beautiful. Well, just because I don't know. It's all that history torn down and replaced. I mean, it's got new history, obviously, but
yeah. I mean, the French they had a way of incorporating many times old buildings into new ones. And so you would, and the same is true in, I'd say a lot of that is true in Spain and in Italy and in France, but the French, there's also, and there are going to be people who hear this and who will criticize me for saying this, and that's okay. This is my experience. Maybe theirs is different. The French have a very interesting relationship with fashion and architecture. And so one of the reasons why America got so much furniture in post World War II and up until today, and why you could buy French antiques so cheaply, is because the French regularly get rid of stuff. There's some things that they keep forever, but then there are other things that they have no problem changing out for whatever's new.
Not particularly sentimental people.
So I mean, they can be about. I think that Toulouse, you could tell every storefront was beautifully cared for. It was, there were almost no franchises in the city. There was a bakery on every corner. Everything is meticulously and beautifully laid out.
Wow.
It's in the south of France, and so about half the population speaks Spanish fluently. So I'm at home because I speak English, Spanish, and French, right? And I'm walking around and I'm either speaking. It's one of the first experiences I've had in France, and I've been speaking French every day for about 2.5 years now with a tutor that I've hired, and so my French isn't. I still sound kind of like a dumb baby.
Yeah, but at least well, if that's true, at least you can get around. That's amazing.
But this is the first time where people would just speak with me in French or in Spanish, and it was mostly French that I was speaking the whole time.
Why would anyone speak to you in Spanish?
Because they speak Spanish there, and when they would,
they do.
When I learned that they spoke Spanish, I would, about half the because they're so close to Spain.
Oh yeah, makes sense.
There's a lot, but again, because of their aeronautics in that city from Airbus. I mean, I would be in a French restaurant that was 200 or 300 years old, and around me would be people from Japan, from India, from China, from Poland, from Russia, and they were all engineers, and they're all there working as engineers for Airbus.
Really?
So it was surprising. I'm ready to move to Toulouse. I'm ready. That's basically what I
so beautiful.
I got to show you. There in some of the images I sent you. You go into the administration building or the municipal building, and at the turn of the century, they decided to bring in some of their local painters to paint their council chambers, the halls where they would make announcements, where they would have the public enter in. And there's one room dedicated entirely to the paintings of Henri Martin that he did at the turn of the century. So you'll see that there are some images that aren't just paintings, they're kind of like paintings inside of an architectural space.
Yeah.
And there's one that so that's one right there. So, oh my gosh.
Wow, these are big.
Oh my gosh. You walk into this room, those are 30-foot long paintings.
Are you serious?
The big ones, yeah. And on one hand, he's painting so this is on one side, the long painting of the farmland around Toulouse, and then the other painting that you had up first of the people walking around is opposite, showing the city of Toulouse right along the riverbank. So he's capturing both the agricultural side and the city life of it at one time. And in the same room, he has all 4 seasons. I didn't show all 4 seasons in this, but here's a beautiful 12-foot painting.
This is 12 feet?
Yeah, it's about 12 feet.
Holy
of the and there's another one that
the building must be huge, because it doesn't look
it's a
like
huge
that
building.
Big.
Yeah, it's huge. It's huge. Those windows are huge. And you walk in and you think to yourself, okay, if this is what a people does for their city, that they hire an artist to make to decorate the interior of their public buildings, and to honor the crafts, to honor the location they come from, to honor the people, you can't help but feel pride for the people of Toulouse being there, and you want it for yourself, right? I want this for where we're from. I want this for everybody where they're from.
God, you know, it's
I
so
want
funny.
them to feel this.
So funny you mentioned that. I was driving just recently down the street with one of my kids, and I pointed to one of these stupid, I mean, off the charts, ridiculous so-called sculptures around Salt Lake City. These pieces of metal painted in all kinds of stupid colors, all welded together into this crude representation of like a bee or something stupid. And I'm just like, what the crap is wrong with our culture? I mean, why are they commissioning this garbage?
Well, and we've got kind of the right idea with part of it. It's like we got half of an idea that
support
in Utah,
the arts.
There's a law,
but
there's a law that 1% of a building cost for a state building needs to be spent on art. And so here, if you have like a $30 million building, you spend $300,000 on art, which I argue isn't enough in today's money, right? So that's a good idea right there, right? That at least they're legislating that. But I think part of it is that people don't know in today's age what quality looks like all the time. You know, it's
sure, that seems obvious.
It's hard for them to judge. And so and we know this just in life in general, that it's not always the best or brightest that get the commission, right?
Well, what do you think the difference is? Why did they seem to know in the 19th century what was legitimate art, and now today everyone seems so ignorant? Not everyone, obviously, but you know what I mean. Salt Lake City, whoever's commissioning these stupid sculptures all over the streets, is clearly ignorant.
And it's not just Salt Lake. It's not just Salt Lake City, and it's not just the United States, right? I've experienced this all over the world, even Europe today when I go there. I've got a mixed. Micah has, this is, I'm talking about myself in the third person. Micah has a crazy idea.
I love the third person.
So this is the crazy idea. Okay. Is that I think there was actually more bad art in the 19th century than there is today. And I'll tell you why.
Okay.
Because I think it was movie, television, and radio. And the visual arts were the dominant media of the time. And there were more people per capita going to art schools, and they were producing more art. I mean, if you want to see the worst figurative art that was ever created on the history of Earth, go to the 19th century, right?
Really?
It had the worst. Like there was so much bad art being created, but it's what survived, because we're 100+ years removed from it. And we've gotten rid of most of the bad stuff. And I think that's not a full explanation. I think that's a partial explanation. Because if you were to show up, people tell me today that really don't like contemporary art. They'll say, why can't we have the great art of the 19th century being in some of these competitions and shows? And I'll say, you know what? If you went to the 19th century and saw your average competition, you would also be really offended and nonplussed by what was there. Because you were only seeing like 1 to 5% of what actually survived that era, possibly, right? And what was good, and the best of the best that was good. But there also was, I mean, that's one side of the argument. The other side is, when Henri Martin made these works, and we'll talk a little bit about his biography and we'll start earlier in his career. This is him mid-career, what we're looking at. When he was doing these works, this was the experimental work of the era. Because if you were to look at it up close, we'll look at a few examples. It was divisionist, pointillist. It was very the figures were deliberately very flat. The it was an extreme, the application of paint was very heavy, and so it would have seemed experimental in his time what he was doing. And I think that even experimental in their art in their time was generally understandable by by the general population without the need of art priests, I call them, or locutors, right? Who would step
Mm-hmm.
in and have to explain what was going on for you, right?
Mm-hmm.
We've created a real, um, I mean, this is going to sound harsh to a lot of people. And so I got to be careful of how I back this, I got to be careful how I phrase this, I think. And I know you agree with me, but you're probably even more conservative on this spectrum than I am.
Mm-hmm.
But I like some contemporary art and I like some abstract and some experimental art, and I can get behind it.
Mm-hmm.
My heart is is in traditional figurative and classical art. That's because that's what I've spent most of my effort on, and it's also just what I gravitate towards, right? And I don't want to criticize somebody who really likes Rothko. I like Rothko. I
Mm-hmm.
can't tell you why I like Rothko, and I can't explain what he does, right? I can just
Mm-hmm.
tell you I got a gut feeling that I like it. But in in our era, I think that we have these tools that have developed over centuries, over millennia, arguably, of paint and brushes and rules of perspective and all kinds of things that have taken a long time for us to develop. And it's almost like saying to somebody, here's a violin. It took us thousands of years to go from a single stringed instrument that we
Mm-hmm.
plucked to something that now is a violin. And you can have like a Stradivarius that's millions of dollars to one that's a Yamaha that's a couple $100 for your kid to use in school. And the people who built these, they were learning scales and a note system, and they were practicing on with a certain idea of this is what it takes to be skilled at this instrument. And then at some point, this didn't happen in music, but it did happen in the fine arts around, I think probably, you know, the turn of the century to the 1930s and 40s. They handed the violin to these artists and just said, there's no right or wrong way to play it. Just self-expression matters. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, whatever you come up with, I can't criticize and you can you know, good we'll appreciate just hearing your story and what you come up with,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it's the idea that matters more than the craft behind what you do, or you learning a certain, you don't need to practice scales, you don't need to do all these things. And you know what? In some ways, I think one out of a certain percentage of artists who were given paints and brushes and all of that did come up with something interesting, you
Mm-hmm.
know, that was maybe worth talking about, right?
Yeah.
But the majority of them, there was a disservice done to the public and the individual artists themselves who weren't given rules or skills to work with. And I understand why they fought against those rules, because they found them, you know, restrictive, and they wanted to, and they found that the people who were passing down those rules were, I mean, it's an old argument, right? It's a very old argument. We don't have to replay the whole argument. But this, the reason it goes to your question of like, why do they have this then and why don't we have it today? And I think it's because, you know, at some point, you know, in music, people, you can't, you can't, atonal music didn't go very far,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And we have pop music today. And, and even the greatest pop musicians are really serious musicians. I mean, Radiohead, David Bowie, you know, these guys are very serious musicians, and many of them were trained classically, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think we have, for the people who are making metal powder, um, um, metal sculptures of bees on the side of the road in Salt Lake City. Um, they're they're not judged on the same standard, and the public is being told that, you know, in that absence of a system, that this is art today, and this is what we got, right? This is the best we've got, and there's no way to judge good or bad, and um and what matters is the narrative behind it, or the story of the person who made it most of the time.
Hmm.
Having said that, I have met a lot of contemporary artists who do very experimental things that take a lot of craft that took them decades to perfect.
No,
And
I,
so
I agree with that. Yeah.
I don't want to paint too broad of a stroke, but I do want to say that back then there was general consensus of this is what it took to be a professional artist.
Hmm.
And the public and the schools and the artists and the economy were all on the market were all on the same page. We live in a much more fractured environment today than they did then. And it's largely controlled by the people who destroyed the system.
Yeah. Just to be
Yeah,
clear, from my perspective, I may be a little more conservative. I don't know, but it's not an issue of whether it's contemporary or traditional. I mean, if the city hired Aaliyah Chapin or Zoe Frank, I'd be cheering, who are relatively contemporary or relatively modern artists. It's just it would be no different if they hired the worst realist to do this work. They're not
it's
hiring
true.
good modern artists,
It's
right?
true. I think that is a really good way of saying it, because
Yeah,
you and I have both seen, especially in, and I've judged a lot of religious art contests, not just here locally, but I've judged
yeah.
Catholic art contests in Europe before. And there's nothing worse than bad religious figurative art,
Oh God, it's terrible.
you
Well,
know,
I hope people
because
people probably think that's what I do, but okay, hope not. But
no,
yeah,
that
but
is
it's
not what you do. I
terrible.
can say definitively that is not what you do. But I think
Thank you.
that, and why is it bad? And it's because it relies on the ability of the audience to impose their values on it. And so the moment you put a hand reaching out of a tablecloth, it's Christ's hand reaching towards you, right?
Right.
And so the audience will tear up the moment they see it, whether it's painted or conceived in a good or bad way. And frankly, that's why the modernists rebelled against academic and classical art in a lot of ways, because they were tired of that's one of the reasons, is because they felt like it was hard to make serious or interesting art when figurative art had fallen into so many tropes and so many, like, it was like they felt restricted by it. So I don't
Yeah.
think there was an illegitimate reason. But I do feel like the thing that we are missing often, and you know, it's funny, I hear this from people who run traditional figurative art educations, or who get hired in programs, that they feel like even figurative art schools aren't teaching fundamentals in the way that is useful to artists.
Mm-hmm.
So it's I think, you and I don't want to sound like an old curmudgeon, because I do love the diversity that's in the art world. And I think that we're better for having more diversity. What I really lament is I have a son who's interested in art. He's trying to develop his own skill set. And I think it's harder to acquire that skill set now than it was in the 19th century. And in the 19th century, you could go to like Henri Martin, who we're talking about today. He was from Toulouse. Toulouse was not the center of the art world by any means. But he, as a young man, his parents were cabinet makers. His father was, and a cabinet maker was a very prestigious title to get. It was not just it wasn't like making kitchen cabinets today. It was a craftsmanship. And you would like Henri Martin because he was
Mm-hmm.
trained to do woodwork, and very complicated woodwork, as a young man.
You know, they
So
still
he
use
could
that
do,
phrase today for furniture makers.
they do.
They
And in
still call
French,
them
they call
cabinet
them
makers. Yeah.
in French, the term is ébéniste, because ebony was a very expensive and difficult thing to work with because of the nature of it being
Mm-hmm.
one of the hardest woods. And so if you attained the highest level of being a cabinet maker, you were called an ébéniste, someone who worked in
Could
ebony.
you, dude, working with ebony with hand tools? That'd be terrible. I can't even
Yeah,
imagine.
it's really, it was, I mean, we'll one of these days, you and I will talk about some of the great ébénistes of France, because they the greatest furniture that was ever made was made in France at the end of the 18th century, arguably.
Hmm.
And you know, Martin came from this family of these cabinet makers, these ébénistes, and he convinced his family that he wanted to be a painter. So they sent him to a local, kind of anonymous, is somebody who, you know, I couldn't even find a good example of his work today. His name was Jules Garipuy, and he had studied at the École des Beaux-Arts in Paris, and he was living in Toulouse, and he was doing kind of local portraiture for people in Toulouse.
Mm-hmm.
And you could do this if you were a French artist. You could learn the basic rules from almost anybody, and then if you attained a certain level of skill, you would take your drawing folio to the big school after you'd studied and mastered basic anatomy, basic composition, basic values, right? Just as long as you could understand how to put an image together. They wanted to see that, and then they would bring you into a school. So you'd probably, by the time that he was around, they had universal education in France. I think that started in the 1850s, really, like down to Toulouse where he was. And so he went to elementary school. He went to kind of a trade school, probably studied with his father. So he ends up going to this local artist. And then after this local artist said he was ready, and this is the big leap of faith for Martin, Henri Martin. He says to his parents, I'm going to give up the carpentry business and I'm going to go to Paris and I'm going to go to the École des Beaux-Arts. And he didn't know if he was going to be accepted. Now, this is in the late 1870s or early 1880s. So, I mean, imagine the Eiffel Tower is being built. This is the era of, like, France is the magnet for everyone in the world wants to study there. The chances that you're going to make it there, it's like saying, if one of your kids said to you, Jeff, I'm going to go be in a Marvel movie right now. Right? Or maybe you said it a few years ago, right? I'm going to go be in a Marvel movie.
That's an exaggeration though, right?
No. It's not an exaggeration.
Really?
Because in a way, because in a way, like the biggest art form of the age was painting. And if you could go to the École des Beaux-Arts and go to that school and graduate and be in one of their programs, and there were, I think, gosh, I'm going to get the number wrong, but there were a couple dozen École des Beaux-Arts, schools of fine art throughout France.
Oh,
but
no
the
kidding. I didn't know
one,
that.
the principal one was in Paris. So you could go to the local one, but if you wanted a career path, you'd go to the one in Paris. If you wanted like a national or international career, you'd go to the one in Paris.
But
here's the
question. The question I have though is, so if my kid were to say, I want to be an actor so I can be in a Marvel movie.
Yeah.
Obviously, not obviously. I would support them, but I would be afraid because I know how competitive it is. But my understanding was in the 19th century, being an artist wasn't like it is today. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, where parents actually saw it back then as a legitimate career, or is that not the case? Was it like acting where it's like, oh gosh, there's not a chance you're going to make it in acting? Or was it something that parents actually were like, oh yeah, you can be a painter?
I just have to take a minute to thank each one of my generous patrons for your part in keeping this podcast going. I could not continue to do it without you, so thank you so much. If you're not a patron yet, but you love the show and you listen regularly, please consider becoming a patron. It's really easy to do and it doesn't have to break the bank. Just head over to theundrapedartist.com and click on the link Be My Patron on Podbean. And then choose a monthly donation amount that fits your budget. It's that simple.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, there were levels, let's say. So let's say that I came to you and I said, Dad, I want to be a painter in the Salon.
Yeah.
So the Paris Salon had maybe a few hundred artists that showed a few thousand works, but there were thousands of artists who tried to show 20,000 works in the salon.
Mm.
And the salon happened once a year. And if your work was in the salon, it wasn't a guarantee of success, but it would be distributed all around the world in magazines. You'd get a patron potentially. And Paris had a population in the 1880s of like 250,000 people. And over 2 million people would see the salon in person.
Jeez, dude.
So almost 10 times. So the chances of you getting in the salon were very low. And if I said, hey, Dad, I really want to be an artist who shows in the salon on a regular basis, you'd say, okay, son, that's a really good goal. But if you just become the guy, if you go and get trained at that school, let's say you get in, that's a big deal if you get into the Paris École des Beaux-Arts.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big deal. If you get there, at the very least, you'll be able to work for magazines whose job it is to make steel plate engravings of the works in the salon, and you'll have a regular paying job.
Which is freaking
Right.
hard too, by the way.
Yeah, it is super hard.
Yeah.
Or you'll get a job working in a magazine doing fashion, or you'll be doing, you're right. It wasn't like, you'll be trained as an actor at Juilliard or NYU, and we'll put out all that expense just so you can be a barista at Starbucks.
Right.
Right. I mean, you would at least get a job that was a good job.
If you were competent.
If you were competent. And frankly, like, if you got into the École des Beaux-Arts in Paris, you were competent enough to usually make it through the system, because they wouldn't just accept anybody.
Are you familiar with the numbers of how many people applied to the salon every year versus how many people got in?
Yeah, I mean, I mean, just general.
Yeah.
It was usually, I mean, not just everybody would apply to be in the salon, but I think at its height, you had as many as 20,000 images that were submitted, and a couple thousand that would come out of that. But there was already kind of a vetting process. You couldn't be just anybody to submit usually.
Oh, okay.
I mean, there were exceptions to that, but just generally it was a very low acceptance rate.
Right.
Maybe not as low as we think of today, because that doesn't seem crazy. That's like 10%.
Yeah, that's not that low. Like the Porsche side, you got 4,000, something like 4,000, and had to whittle it down to 20.
But if you think about, the numbers of artists who were working in the 19th century, there were tens or hundreds of thousands of people training to be artists all around the world, right? I mean, it was a really difficult system. And for you to be, I mean, there were people in Spain who were submitting things to, there were something like 16 schools in Spain alone. And if you wanted your work sent to the Paris Salon to be judged for that year's competition, you either had to have the okay from the local Spanish leaders who would pay for it to be sent, or you had to be independently wealthy for you to send it on your own through the expensive like mail or train.
Yeah, we got it so easy today. Right? You just drop it in on a form and send a digital image. Yeah. I can't even imagine.
So Henri Martin, he goes to the École des Beaux-Arts when he's, let's see, I think it's, he becomes a student in 1881 of Jean-Paul Laurent. I think, let me see if I've got this right. So he's born in 1860. When he's 17 years old, so 1877, he studies with Jules Garepuis, who's the local artist. He studies with him for 2 years. After 2 years, he goes to Paris and he studies at the École des Beaux-Arts from 1879. And I don't know how much of that year he was there. Could have been the end, it could have been the middle, it could have been the beginning. Until 1881, he becomes a student of Jean-Paul Laurent. Now, I want you to look up, just on an internet search pretty quickly, Jean-Paul Laurent. and you spell that
Yeah, I'm gonna
um,
need some help.
um,
That's funny.
Jean, Jean. Well, tell me when you got it up.
I've got
Jean,
okay.
Paul, and Laurent is spelled Laurent.
Yeah, never would have
Many
gotten that
people,
right.
many people will know Jean-Paul Laurent because of his work in the Pantheon in France, and he was a teacher
Oh, he didn't come
at
up.
the École des
It's some other
Beaux-Arts.
modern dude. Here,
Jean-Paul Laurent.
is it Jean Paul one word or two words?
Jean-Paul is hyphenated. Sorry, I should have said that. I don't know how much of a difference that makes.
I don't know. I mean, I'm gonna type in art. Maybe that'll help.
Oh, you know what? It's Laurent with a T, with an NS, not a TS, not a T. Sorry. Laurens. I'm sorry.
Oh, Laurence.
Laurent.
Laurent. Okay. Oh, there we go. There we go. Let me pull that
Okay.
up.
So Jean-Paul Laurent, he is famous for doing these historically accurate, very dynamic and dramatic scenes of of important historical figures, and he's doing these in the 1860s, 70s, 80s. Makes his name, and Laurent is seen as kind of he's at the top of his of the pecking order of the École des Beaux-Arts and the French Academy. In some ways, he's his competitors are people like Bouguereau,
Hmm.
and they're teaching at rival schools. So Bouguereau is teaching at the Académie Julienne, which is a non-state school. It's a commercial school, but Jean-Paul Laurent is teaching at the state school, and Henri Martin becomes his student and studies with him for 2 years.
Man, that's not shabby for your first teacher.
I know. So I mean, like, you're already in, right?
Yeah.
You're kind of already in. And the first work that he creates right out of the gate is huge. It's huge. I mean, it is this the one I'm thinking of? Hold on a second. Maybe it's not as big as I think. It's ambitious in its scale. He wanted to make it much bigger. But I mean, yeah, it is big. It's 118 inches wide. So go to the images that I sent you.
Okay.
Sorry, we're kind of jumping all over the place.
No, it's okay. Okay.
And there's an image of a scene of a man kind of on his knees with a winged angel coming out of it, it looks like. And it's long. It's a horizontal piece.
We'll find it here.
Keep going. Yep, it's that one.
Hey, that was pretty
So
good.
this is his first work that he does. He's 21 years old.
Hmm.
And this is not a great image. I couldn't find a really good one. It's hard to image, and it's called The Poet. So let
Doesn't
me
look anything
back
like his
up here
teacher.
for a second. Doesn't look anything like his teacher. He
Hmm.
is adopted. He becomes a member of this group that call themselves the Symbolists. Now, the Symbolists are enamored of pre-Renaissance works. So their equivalent is kind of like the pre-Raphaelites in England. The pre-Raphaelites are tired of the standard rules of perspective and figurative work that happen in the art of their time. And the same thing kind of happens in France with these symbolists, who add to that they're all very romantic. They're interested in poetry. They're interested in mysticism and religion. And they're a reaction against, in many ways, industrialism and science, which is saying the world is rational, everything can be explained. They want to create a world that is much closer to the mystery of life, the things that are unexplained, I mean, they would really be into seances. They were into Edgar Allan Poe. They were into Virgil. They're into having kind of, we would almost call them hippies, right? They wanted the unexplainable in life. They wanted to go out in the forests and experience that. They didn't want they didn't think that progress as defined by the Eiffel Tower and electricity was progress. They thought that humanity needed to be in touch with with the muses, with the sibyls, with the prophets, with something that was much deeper, and they weren't even particularly religious in one way. He goes to Italy, he comes back, and this is what he paints after being with Jean-Paul Laurent. So here you have a poet who almost looks Greek or Roman with a and he's trying to find inspiration. And on one hand, he's got on the left of the painting a barren world. It's winter. And then his muse, who's holding the lyre of Apollo, and Apollo is the god of truth and arts, is springing out of him and showing him a vision of what could be Toulouse. It's this pastoral scene of almost like a Garden of Eden, but with shepherds and
So this is the
and,
vision on the right side of the canvas?
That's the vision on the right side.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this isn't the earliest work I've got by him. There's a figure of a half-naked man that's Orpheus that he paints just a year or two before this. Not that. It's very dark. It's a super dark painting, and it's not a very good quality image.
It's not that, is it? No.
No, keep going, keep going.
Oh,
it's
right
on.
here,
It's
right
the
here.
next to last. Yeah. So this is Orpheus with his lute, and he paints this while he's working with Jean-Paul Laurent, and this is much more like Jean-Paul Laurent.
Oh yeah, this
But he
is
does
much more
this when he's
academic.
about like 19 or 20 years old.
Man, so
And
he's already trying to find himself.
he's really, really trying to find what makes him, tick. He's
Yeah.
not, and he does a series of self-portraits of him as John the Baptist, which one just came up to market. You can see it. It's the one of the 3/4 male profile. That's a guy with a dark beard. That's a self-portrait of him as John the Baptist. And there's another version of it that you can put side by side that was done at the same time when he was doing a John the Baptist shot. That's a
I'm
little
laughing
farther.
because when you were describing him or describing the symbolists, all I
Yeah.
could think about was, I wonder what their personal hygiene was like. Like, I bet they smelled really bad. And we pull up the self-portrait. I'm like, yeah, probably.
Go to the
Oh man.
try and find the other one that's just like that. It's all the way to the left.
Oh
And put
god.
them up side by side.
Let's see.
These were both done in 1883, I believe. So 2 years after that other one. and this is him working on a John the Baptist piece. So you get an
Interesting.
idea of his ability to and these are just studies. These are not full workup paintings. I mean, these
Yeah.
are roughly about, 20 by 16s. And he's got a skill set that he's
The one on
learned
the
from the
left
academy.
looks good. Yeah. The one on the right's a little
And
odd, but
he's working really quick. These are not, long studies. He's not working super hard on them.
right.
These are probably something he works up in a few days
Yeah.
in his studio. Nothing that he's perfecting in any way. And he submits to the next contest this work that is vertical, that is unbelievable. And he doesn't ever really do anything.
What's it
There are
up?
2 works I'm going to show you. It's let's see. Keep going to the right. Keep going all the way. Okay.
You gave me a
Yeah.
lot of images today. Holy moly.
I did.
Dude.
Okay. So near the middle, almost the exact middle. That one. Yep.
Holy
This
piss.
is huge.
This is same
This
artist?
is huge. Yep, same artist. So this is huge. This is submitted to the Salon and gets him a lot of critical reviews. And it is 13 feet tall.
Holy crap.
And the painting, for anybody who recognizes Dante's Inferno, there's this famous scene of Francesca and Paolo, who were 2 lovers that, okay, I won't go a lot into it, but Dante's writing in the 13th century, the Inferno. And he writes about an actual contemporary event as he's writing the Inferno. And the Inferno is about Virgil, who's on the right of the painting, takes Dante, who's the figure robed in red, on a journey through purgatory, which is the Catholic idea of the temporary place you go to pay for your sins until you are ultimately put in heaven or in hell, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so he goes through the circles of hell. The circles of hell comes from Dante. And one of the circles of hell is where people go who commit adultery or who break the law of chastity.
Mm-hmm.
And Paolo was the brother of the man who was supposed to marry Francesca. And he becomes the emissary between the fiancés, and he falls in love with her. And when the brother catches them together, he sticks his sword through his brother and kills Francesca at the same time.
Mm.
So there are several famous paintings of this moment, but when Dante goes and visits them in hell, their punishment, well, in purgatory, which is different than hell. Purgatory is a temporary place. When he captures them, when he sees them in purgatory, their punishment is for a time to be caught in winds that never stop, because that's just like they were caught in their own passions. And they need to learn in purgatory the lesson of not being caught up in their own passions. So he finds them caught up in this whirlwind. So here are these two figures holding on to one another for dear life as they're swept up in the winds of purgatory. It is an incredible scene. I mean, I've seen so many versions of Paolo and Francesca. Ari Scheifer's painting, who we'll talk about someday, is maybe the most famous of all of them. And there are some other great artists who've done it. This may be my favorite.
I can't even believe this is the same artist.
It's so dynamic.
Wild.
And isn't the figurative work really
really
compelling?
Strong? Yeah.
The gestures and the it's just like, it is unbelievable.
Is that, well, let me go back. Hold on. I lost it.
Middle. Yep, there you are.
How old was he when he did this?
He was 23. 22 to 23 he painted it.
Gotta be freaking kidding me.
You do this to yourself occasionally, don't you?
Is that a self-portrait?
Yeah, I think that's him. I think that's a self-portrait of him.
Yeah, it looks like him. That's wild.
I mean, so I mean, this is where we always have to be careful, because I showed you these two oil self-portraits and you look at them and you think, okay, they're not bad. They're not amazing.
They're just rough,
but then you look at this 13-foot painting that at the age of 23, he's already winning awards at the Salon after he'd been away from home for 4 years.
Jeez,
right?
Dude.
And he's competing against the best of the best in the world. And he's making 13-foot tall paintings of classical scenes that everybody has painted and doing them in a way that is totally original and showing off a skill set that is mind-blowing. I mean,
Plus
it is
he's
a
doing
mind-blowing
flying
set.
figures. I mean, that's hard to do. I don't even know how he put it together. He had him in ropes or something, or he did it out of his head. I don't know what he did.
I don't know, but I'm he's there's he really is a phenom when it comes to, I mean, just look at the line going down the woman's legs, the two separate legs, and the temperatures of the two different legs, and the way he's controlled the shadow and the foreshortening. And
I wish I could see this in person.
It is, I mean, it's in the museum in Carcassonne, which, I've never been to Carcassonne.
Oh, you haven't?
No, not in person. I've seen, this is the only image I've seen of it too, but just looking at it, you can tell it's unbelievable.
I wish I had a way to just warp to these places and just go on like a day-long tour of all the best paintings in the world. I mean, geez.
It's really unbelievable, isn't it? And I'm going to show you another one that he
incredible.
does around the same time that I couldn't find the finished version of. But it's two figures walking away from an angel, and there are two versions of it, but I think I only put one in. And I think it's to your far, there are two versions. They're right next to each other, the far left, the very far left.
Okay. Wait, this one?
They were at the far left. No, keep going. Oh, that's also for, no. We'll ignore that one. Keep going. Keep going.
Okay.
About the same time. Yep, those two. That one and the one right next to it, to the left of it.
Okay.
So these are both
That's so
paintings for, I think, a
different.
work that was never completed. So you're looking at the rough study. You're looking at what a
Oh,
rough
okay.
study from him looks like, right?
Gotcha.
And I think these are actually the same painting photographed two different ways. I think that one is overexposed and one is underexposed. But it's for a painting that he was going to do of Cain being being pushed out of the garden, being sent into the wilderness. So for those who don't know the story, Cain and Abel, Cain is so Adam and Eve have two children, Cain and Abel, first two children. Cain and Abel both sacrifice to God, and Cain, his sacrifice is not accepted, but his younger brother's Abel is. Cain becomes jealous. I'm giving a simplified version of this. And Cain kills his brother. And his curse is that he's told that he'll have to wander the earth for the rest of his life and be cursed. And he can no longer live with everyone else. He has to create his own people, basically. And so this is a scene that you could almost see his teacher Jean-Paul Laurent painting.
Yeah.
There's a kind of there's a naturalism to how the figures are done. They're not flat in the way that others are done. There's also a real dynamism to the figures. One thing that Jean-Paul Laurent would insert in almost all of his images were really strong diagonals. And so and really like big gestures that would often go outside of the canvas. So you've got those angel wings that are actually going out of the canvas, right? And he was going to make this an enormous painting. I haven't been able to find the final painting, but what do you see here? Look at the highlights on just the limbs of the figures, right?
It's crazy.
Look at the figure of Cain's wife who's holding a baby that's in the foreground, which is an interesting interpretation that Cain was married at the time and had children, and his family suffered the consequences of his actions too. And then you've got this look at the musculature that's just suggested in the angel's arms.
Oh my gosh, I know the
just,
angel's like He-Man.
This skill set, he does this when he's like 23, 24 years old. And he's thinking in all of these paintings he's thinking of are more than 10 feet. They're just huge pieces.
I love the candid poses of the figures.
I
Not
do
the
too.
angel so much. Obviously, the angel's really dramatic, but Cain and his wife and baby, it's almost like a snapshot.
I mean, we think of people spending decades to get to this point in their training, but he starts when he's 17 with a local. When he's 19, he goes to Paris. When he's 21, 22, he's painting like this. So it's like 5, 6, 7 years. He's painting in large scale with this level of competence in the figure and choosing poses that are dynamic and not they're not awkward, and they're not overly classical, which is what happened to figurative artists usually who were in the system. Is they created this, like we've all seen them, those contrapposto poses.
Yeah.
That are like one hip up, one hip down, one shoulder up, one shoulder down. And like, it's like that, those feet, which are pointing roughly in the same direction of Adam. Not of Adam, of like Cain.
Yeah.
And the highlight that goes from one leg to the other leg is just a really brilliant choice. And then we're not seeing the finished piece. We're seeing his rough draft. This is his oil that is he would have done pencil drawings to get to this point, had models pose, done a lot of work to get to this point. And so it's not a casual, like he's inventing it from his head. He's working with models to get up to this point. But we're not seeing his finished paintwork at this moment. When we saw the other piece of Dante.
Just brilliant.
It is beautiful, isn't it?
Oh, it's just so simple and yet so perfect.
And look at how he's look at just his values, how he's controlling lights and darks. And
oh yeah, that I would love just to own this study.
It's brilliant, isn't it?
He
really is a phenom. So let's jump ahead a little bit. I want to show you a couple of paintings that kind of blew my mind when I saw them. So one is a painting that it's got a lot of figures that look like they're walking in a train.
Okay.
In a big group of people. And it's horizontal. So it's a lot of figures together.
Look like they're walking in a
Oh,
train.
that may be it. Close to the left. Keep going. Keep going. Right there. Is that it?
This episode is brought to you in part by Rosemary Brushes. If you're one of my listeners who's a professional artist, you're already using Rosemary brushes. But for the rest of you, come on. Take your work a little more seriously. Stop buying the other brands. It's just not worth it. Every now and then you may get lucky and buy a good brush from another brand, but use the brand that professionals like myself are using. Go to rosemaryandco.com, link in the description or the show notes, and get yourself some quality brushes before your next painting.
Oh, do you
No,
mean...
but this is really similar. This is.
Oh, I
this
thought
is
you
when he
meant like a
starts getting
train,
to
like a
his-
choo-choo train.
No. But go to the.
Oh my gosh,
Go
I'm
to the
so-
right. Go to the right. Almost to the. Keep going to the right. Keep going right there. Stop right there.
You talking about this one?
Keep going to the left. Go to the left. Take your cursor left. Right there.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah.
So this is a study. This is a study, and there's a final work that you'll see that's your cursor's almost right on top of. It's
Okay.
the same painting, but it's the
gosh,
final
dude.
version. And the final version is, I think, 30 feet wide long.
Oh, come on.
And
Oh
the
my
title of the
gosh.
painting is it's in French, it's called Chacun sa chimera. Each one his own chimera, or his own dream, or his own muse, each one with his own muse. And so each one of these figures is supposed to be a part of humanity, and what they've chosen to inspire them. And so you've got the Franciscan monk who's in the foreground, who's got an angel inspiring him. You've got the man who's got a dragon that he's carrying on his back. You've got another one who's in the foreground that's got the figure of, I think, is it Minerva that he's carrying? And so it's this very symbolist. I couldn't find a long description of it, but it's just very typical of the symbolist movement. It's this idea that he's showing humanity as being in its spiritual groundings, and what inspires us as humans. And for him, he's trying to show that if you would have looked at this in France, which you got to remember, France is a secular state. After Napoleon, after the revolution, really, they'd given up Catholicism as the only reason. And he, in a way, is saying, at this time of a lot of industrialization, at this time of there was more war than ever in France during his lifetime, leading up to World War I and the Prussian time. He's kind of, the symbolists are pushing for spiritual renewal in a state that is no longer religious. And he's saying here, there are lots of different kinds of spirituality, and we need to prioritize it. Whether it's, for you, religion, and so he's got the Franciscan in front, whether it's the classical gods, whether it's whatever it is, we all need this if we're going to be whole people, and we're all carrying around it. You need to discover who you are. If you've watched, are you a Harry Potter fan? Harry Potter fans would I know the idea of a Patronus, like your companion animal. This is the painting about, who is your muse? Who is you'd look at this painting and you'd have a discussion about, my muse is the Holy Ghost, or my muse is
A dinosaur
Plato.
eating my head.
Yeah,
Maybe
or
it's a
my
muse.
muse
What is that about?
Or I don't know. I don't know. He's shown a lot of, but it's a huge painting, and look at how he's got the classical training, but the figures are deliberately elongated. This is
that's like
this
12
is
heads tall right there.
This is a symbolist thing. It's deliberate. It's almost like a return to a kind of what's the word I'm looking for? Oh, it's after the Renaissance, there was the mannerism. It's a
Mm.
mannerist approach, but it's towards beauty because they think of it as like the elongation of form. But there's also simultaneously a flattening of form. So it's interesting because these figures are you. I wanted to show you the earlier works so you knew that he understood anatomy,
Oh
form,
yeah.
and he chose as time went on to become increasingly flat and elongated with his forms. And it was a
Dang,
choice. It
dude.
wasn't because he
Why
couldn't
don't we
see.
know more about him? Why Monet and Manet and Renoir and Degas when this guy was in France? What the heck?
I don't know. I don't know. It's a good question. Are
Seriously,
you are you
I'd
are
never.
you are you you're impressed by him?
Heck yeah.
Yeah.
And honestly, I like the study better in this one. But what I'm impressed
What do you like
by,
more about it? Say more about that. Why do you like to study more?
well, for one, I think the subject on this one is just difficult. It's just weird. I don't enjoy looking at it because of the weird dinosaurs and all that kind of stuff. But
Yeah.
and I think that this one becomes more. It says everything it needs to say without all of that stuff. I mean, you can
Hmm.
see the gestures and the emotion, and but also I like the composition. I love the red figure up front. I
I
love the
like that red figure
sky being
too.
so warm. I love the brushwork on it. That study is
Because
gorgeous.
almost everybody who writes about him describes him as a neo-impressionist or divisionist. And I hate our tendency as art historians or as people who just are into art to have to put people into categories. Because I think that you remember we talked about Theo van Rijsselberg, who
Hmm.
did he was academically trained and he adopted a kind of pointillist or what we call divisionist approach to things.
Hmm.
And there's no doubt that in his brushwork, Martin was the same way. He started to adopt he wasn't using fluid brushstrokes like a Sargent would be, or even a Jean-Paul Laurent. He started to dot his canvases, use very abbreviated strokes with everything he did because he liked the effect and he would build up the paint. But I would not really compare him to a Seurat. He doesn't look like
No,
Seurat at all to me. I think he has more in common with a classically trained figurative artist than he does with the Seurat or the Impressionists with his work. I mean,
do you know if
maybe
Seurat could
Degas.
have produced what this guy was producing
Oh
at
no, no,
23?
no, no, no. Seurat just didn't have the figurative
That's what
know-how,
I'm
and
saying. This
yeah.
guy's the real deal.
And I there are some things I like by Seurat, but Seurat died young, and also I mean I think that the thing that we look at like the Sunday the Grand Jatte or the other pieces by Seurat that are big. Seurat did maybe two or three of those. This guy did 30 or 40. Like this guy Martin did the speed and ambition with which he did works is kind of shocking. And when I went into that room, which was I'd seen some small works by Martin over the years, but I'll show you the two works that made me want to talk about him today were, well, first of all, that one room that had both the agri the the peasants working in the field plus the city of Toulouse.
Yeah.
But then there's one crazy painting you've got to see.
Okay.
It's called Into the Abyss. And I think you're three away from it. Go to your right. Go to your right. Keep going right there.
What the
This
heck?
piece,
This guy's got such an
I
imagination.
could not believe it. And I put this up
What in
on
the
my feed,
world?
like on your stories for Instagram.
Yeah.
And somebody said to me, I've never seen that work by Frazetta before.
Are you serious?
Yeah. And I said, it's not Frazetta. It's Henri Martin and it's called Into the Abyss. And I could not find anybody describing it's a 6 foot wide painting. And and it is one of the strangest, most wonderful, disturbing paintings and you know, he had to go to the Paris Zoo to look at those tigers. Look at those
Oh
tigers.
yeah,
I mean,
they're
holy crap,
brilliant.
right? And he's and much of this has to be imagined and also has to be melded with actual
Yeah.
figures. And I don't know, it's because he was into symbolism, and the symbolist would also would kind of in a way avoid sometimes their, not just kind of in a way, they would avoid, like some artists do today, telling people the strict interpretation of a work because they wanted you to have your own experience with it. And it was deliberately um what we would call psychedelic,
What the
right? It was deliberately out there.
what the heck is with this guy?
That looks like a self-portrait of himself,
He's just
doesn't it?
standing there like, hey, what's going on over there with the tigers? Like,
But I mean, but okay, so let's, if you zoom out on it and you
yeah,
say, just look at it from the standpoint of composition, transition of color, values. Holy crap. This
it's
is
pretty
like, I mean, it
wild.
is, and most of his paintings in the symbolist stage are very cool. This is him doing really warm and breaking the rules, by the way, of what you're taught in the academy of light figures in the foreground, dark figures in the background, right? He's turned that on its head. So you're looking at all these dark shapes in the foreground and it goes light towards the back. But you do have that bright torch in the
Hmm.
center.
Well, not to mention he's two different painters in this. He's late himself and early himself in the same painting. I
Yeah,
mean,
that
this,
that figure of
yeah,
that
that fig,
boy, angel, whatever that is, whatever it is, that puto, as we'd say, in because it's a single male angelic figure in classical
you
world,
talk
they
about
call them
this one right
puto.
here on the tiger.
Yeah, whatever that is, who's holding the torch.
Yeah, it's so
I mean,
classical. And then the background right here is totally
yeah.
his more or his later work.
And you know what? This could have been done. Um, this is the kind of thing that I would love to see fantasy artists doing today. This level of work, because I think it really is in the spirit of what fantasy artists are doing today. If you were to show this to somebody, that's why somebody said Frazetta when they
Yeah,
looked at it.
yeah.
They're like, "Oh, I haven't seen a Frazetta like that." I don't think Frazetta could have done something quite like this. I think Frazetta was good, and I think we should talk about Frazetta at some point. And I don't know him as well as I should, but uh, but this is, I mean, if you had given this to me and asked me when it was done, I would have not been able to tell you when
I
it was done in
wouldn't
the history of
either.
art.
It looks sort of like Patrick Devonis' work too.
Oh, it does kind of. I could see Patrick. Shout out
Yeah,
to Patrick if you're listening. But by
yeah.
the way,
I could totally see him painting something like this.
but then, you know, about the same time, he does this work that's called Beauty, and it's a single female figure.
Mm-hmm.
That's vertical. Yeah, I think
Are
that's
we
it.
looking
Go,
for?
you were just at it.
Oh, I was
Go to the left. Go to the left, right
right
there.
here.
And this is about 6 feet tall. And when you see it in person,
What?
this image does not do any justice.
You're telling me this is really great in person?
In person, it is one of the most beautifully um, painted with like as a in brushwork. It is one of the most insane images I've ever seen. If I
That's
text the image
amazing.
to you,
I wouldn't
can
think
you
this would translate in life
okay, so I'm going to
size.
send this to you. I've got an image of this that I took. So that's the one that I downloaded from the museum for this. But I'm going to show you the one that I took as a raw image that you can zoom in on, hopefully, and
You
get a
emailing it to
better
me?
idea of. You want me to email it? Is that the best way to do it?
Yeah, yeah. That's really the only
Okay.
way.
So I apologize in advance to everybody for the color correction, which is not perfect on this. So look at the color correction for what what the museum has. But Jeff, you'll get a better idea of how atmospheric this is from what I'm about to send you. Here we go.
Hmm.
I should have sent this to you before. I'm sorry.
No, no worries.
But here we go. Sending it
Just
to
let me
you
know
from,
once you've sent it so I can refresh.
hold on a second. Here it goes. I'll send it from my Gmail.
I'm just shocked at it. I mean, I like the painting, but I'm shocked that it translates well, life size. It seems like it would be kind of simplistic.
Okay, so you know how sometimes you need to get on an angle with a work of art to see how
Yeah, because of
you
all
need
the
to get,
glare and whatnot.
yeah, so they obviously are, they've flattened it out too much. So I just sent it to you. Tell me when it's
You sent it to
oh,
my
it says
normal
that
address?
I sent it to Jeff HEIN Mobile, I
Oh,
think.
I got it.
You got it? Okay.
All right. What? It's all blurry, dude. Did you know it was blurry?
Is it blurry?
All right, let me just save it really quick. Maybe it's not.
It is a little blurry. It's not perfect, but it gives you an idea of the paint buildup of it. It's not a perfect image.
Yeah. All right, so it should be. Oops, no, I don't want to do that. That's not. I thought that was a refresh. Okay, so it should be in here now. Ah, there it is. Holy crap. Okay. Boy, that frame sure helps too, huh?
Yeah,
God,
yeah.
that's a
So it's
beautiful
about
frame.
6 feet tall, and you can see a
No,
little
I get it now.
better.
Yeah, I get it. It's just.
But it's a symbolist nude, and it's the form is much better shown in the image that I just gave you, right?
Are the
In his
colors just
control.
way off in their version?
Yeah, it's so hard to see it in any image. Neither one of them does full justice to it because it really glows in person. It's very hard to, and there's a lot of paint on it. I mean, it's like it feels like the paint is an inch thick when you see it in person. There's just layer of layer of layer that he's built up on it.
Is it displayed under a skylight?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
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 I mean, yeah, they really photographed it quite warm. That was a mistake. It looks better in your picture. Dang, that's,
So
yeah.
he does these
Hmm.
his technique when he becomes a symbolist um doesn't just stay in that symbolist warm tone, but he does increasingly he makes his bones in the salon. He does these monumental pieces.
Mm-hmm.
I'll give you an example. Let's go to that other one that's vertical of the two figures in red. Yeah, you just went over it. He does more symbolist images. This is another 13-foot tall painting of of this mystical scene of I think it's Dante being inspired by his muses. And after he's made his bones
Hmm.
doing this, he gets commissioned to do the he gets the award of the Legion of Honor when he is in his mid 30s, which is almost unheard of.
Mm-hmm.
So that he becomes a knight of the realm for the arts, which most people get in their 50s, 60s, or 70s. He gets it in his mid 30s. And then he's commissioned to do the state's the what's it called? They're the chambers of council, which are in the Conseil d'État. And I think I've shown it to you. It's a I think I've given it to you. It's an interior of a um of a council room, of a beautiful gilded room, and he's got paintings on the wall. Yeah. So these are huge.
Holy.
Each one of these is like 10 feet. And he does this whole series of pieces for what is basically like it's one of the French kind of houses of parliament
Oh my
or Congress.
gosh. That's
And they're huge.
amazing.
And every one of them has like 80 figures in them. Right. And they're all enormous.
That's every artist's
Zoom in on it a little
dream to
bit.
do something like this.
Yeah. And they're all of like the, you know, the different regions of France and the building up of its and the workers of France.
It's sort of
And
like
he adopts
Soroya's exhibit in the Spanish Society.
yeah.
Or is it
Yeah.
Hispanic Society?
The Hispanic Society of America.
Yeah.
Can you zoom in on those? I couldn't find great images of each one, but they're all big. Yeah, they're all big. And I mean, we're talking again, just buckets of paint to paint 20, 30 foot 10, 30, 10,
Go.
10 to 15 foot tall, I think like 15-foot tall paintings. And they include architecture, and he's the level of ambition of this guy is,
It's
and his
remarkable.
ability to execute is unbelievable. After he makes his bones in Paris, he goes back to live an hour north of Toulouse and live in the countryside.
Mm-hmm.
And then he just starts doing, he lives a very peaceful agricultural life, and he does lots of landscapes. So just pick any one of his landscapes that you want to look at, and we can talk about what his landscapes look like. I mean, this is him in his mature period doing landscape after landscape after landscape of the
Mm.
after he's left the salon and the big commissions behind. He's made it. He goes back home, and this is where you could really put him up against, in my opinion, like a Pissarro or
Oh, heck yeah. Dude, I've
any
used it.
any of these artists that time.
It's incredible.
And he paints, I think, I was able, I don't know if anybody's done a catalog raisonné on him, which is what we call a complete list of all the works he ever did. I found some people said he did 500 works, some people said he did 1,000. The vast majority of his works come from this late period, and they're landscapes with a couple figures in them or some animals.
Hmm.
He probably did about 100 to 200 large scale works. And then the rest of them are almost all 30 by 40 landscape scenes that are these kind of pastoral, peaceful moments.
Wow.
And if you just seen one of these, especially the one on the left, in my opinion, like how hard it is to do a landscape. It's very hard to do landscape
Mm-hmm.
well.
Mm-hmm.
I was having lunch with David Dibble, who you've had on the podcast before. We had lunch on Tuesday. He came up, and he was just talking about how he still studies the figure. He has a figure session on a regular basis that he organizes just for him and a few artists. And he says it's invaluable for his landscape work because the figure and the ability to understand gesture and value and composition that a figure forces you to do helps him in his landscape work. You look at somebody like, and I think you could probably say vice versa, doing plein air
I was
painting
going to
as a
say the same
figurative
thing.
artist, going out and having to take the chaos of nature and force it into some modicum of order.
Yeah, it's totally helped my figurative work. There's no doubt.
That's great. That's really cool to hear. You look at something like this level of color intelligence, this level of compositional intelligence, the layering of the scene, if you had shown this to us and then shown the scene of the two figures swept up in purgatory, you would never think these are the same two artists.
No, I would have
You
had
never
no
think
idea.
that they were the same two artists.
Who do you think he was
But the skill
influenced
level of
by?
each is very high. Go ahead. Sorry,
Who do you
to
think
say.
he was influenced by? Why do you suppose
Oh,
he
I'm
went
sure he
from
was
that
in love with
classical work to this?
I'm sure he's looking at Monet, and I'm sure he's looking at Pissarro, and I'm sure he's looking at people even like Larmite and others. I think that we make too many divisions between what artists are and are not. And I don't think you look at his works, and he obviously loved the Impressionists. He loved their palette. He loved the way the colors they used. He didn't make a strong division between what was worth his time and what wasn't worth his time in that way, right? You look at that huge 30-foot multi-figural painting of the Chimera, those figures, and
The one with this
he's
weird dragon thing you talking about?
with the weird dragon in it, and you put that side by side with this, and you think, you know what? It's not it's I mean,
I like the
you
left
could,
better. But
the left is the kind of thing we're used to seeing from his generation of artists, right? And oh my gosh, I got to show you something. That's one of my favorites. Okay,
okay.
her.
Yeah.
Okay, take this figure on the right, and then there's a sculpture I sent you. That's almost you just passed
Yeah,
it.
no, I remember it
Put it
now.
side by side with the sculpture. So when he was a young artist, this sculpture on the right was used all the time in art schools as a way to copy, almost like cast painting. And
Really?
he took a real model and put her in that pose and made her look like a real person.
That's
And idealized it. She's definitely idealized. I mean, look at how round that face is and how like the proportions aren't quite right, but they're done with a symbolist eye to exaggeration of elongation of the neck, of of roundness of
oh,
that face. But it just goes to show you how inventive and playful he could be too, right? He was just.
this guy's
It's hard not to fall in love with him.
oh my gosh, yeah. I've totally I can't believe I hadn't heard of him.
I you don't be hard on yourself because not many people know about him. He really symbolism did not catch on very long. I mean, it was a
Yeah.
short-lived 2-decade movement. It was hard to do. It was usually done in very large scale.
Yeah, but he's
And
an
oh, and by the
impressionist
way,
too, though. Why I mean, why isn't he lumped in with the other French impressionists?
I don't know. It's a good question. He wasn't hanging out or showing with them. Maybe that's why.
Huh.
Look at there's a self-portrait of him standing in a window, I think, with that's a little later period. Um, I think it's maybe all the way. Oh,
Whoa,
that's
biblical
Christ
painting.
and the Samaritan woman that he did as a large scale piece. I think that's about
Okay,
10
here's what
feet
we need to
tall.
do. I wonder, I just want
You
to,
just
are
want to
you
go
okay?
through
I
them.
want to click through because I don't want to miss any of them here.
Yeah, just we'll click through them. We won't spend a ton of time on them, right? But we'll just get a variety of there's
Wonder,
variety. I think we've
there
done
we go.
this was mostly a show and tell episode, right? This isn't a this isn't an episode of we know everything about him. This
Oh,
is an
by the way,
episode
this is
of
definitely the same painting as the other one. There's no way it's
yeah, it
not. Yeah.
definitely is. It's just different colors.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a
God.
small scale work, as you can see. That he didn't do that, but
That
that's
this
the
one's small. So
yeah. I mean, small isn't like it's not more than 30 inches.
I just want to get in his head. When you paint so incredibly precise and academically, to go so far the other direction is mind blowing. I mean,
It is interesting, isn't it?
it is. I
Well,
just
and
want to know
it's
what
an
was in his
argument
head.
that
Like, what was he thinking?
it's an that's a drawing by him, a little charcoal and pastel piece that he did as a study.
Because you got, I mean, we're all a product of our time, right? But
Mhm.
I mean, sometimes I wonder if I am. I feel like I'm in the wrong century sometimes, but you, what am I trying to say? Would he, if he was born 50 years earlier, he would have never seen Seurat
You wouldn't have ever seen Seurat. You wouldn't
or
have seen the
yeah,
Impressionists in the same
none of the
way.
Impressionists. So
Yeah, you're right.
where would he have ended up? I mean, there must have been some social pressure to fit in.
Or he was just excited by it,
Yeah,
right?
that's
Maybe he
true. It
was
could have been
just
just that.
maybe he just really loved it
Like,
and
oh, what
saw
are
that
these
he could
guys doing over
apply.
here? Yeah. These are the kind of guys I would love to just resurrect and be like, all right, tell me what you were thinking. I got to know.
Yeah.
Because I don't have a favorite. I love what he did early and I love what he did later.
I don't have a favorite either. I think that's one. Oh, look at how beautiful that is. Isn't that just gorgeous, the light in that? I mean, holy cow.
Yeah. It just goes to show there's so many ways to paint a landscape. I had a friend tell me once, who's a great landscape painter, don't do little brushstrokes like that. Think in big masses. And that's the way this landscape painter painted. And I appreciated that, but there are no rules. Look at this. I mean, he's just picking away at this like crazy, and it's just beautiful. Oh my gosh, how is that? How is that the same artist?
I know.
What the
I know. It's
crap?
crazy, isn't it? It's crazy, isn't it?
That's why I freaking love this guy. I'm like, I feel like you just revealed some awesome truth to me here. He's just the whole package.
Isn't that a beautiful piece?
That one's
That could have been done
gorgeous.
by Reiselberg if it wasn't for the subject, but it's also and see, it's the muse standing in front of a canvas. So that's his
Yeah,
canvas on an easel, and that's his muse holding the Apollo's lyre, inspiring the canvas.
yeah.
And it's just it's beautiful, isn't
That's a
it?
perfect balance of this and this.
It is a perfect balance of the two.
Yeah. Oh man, it is so cool. You know, were we
You
gonna
know, that
miss
is
this
huge.
painting, dude?
That is like a 15 to 20 foot long painting. It's huge.
That's remarkable.
It's in the Musée d'Orsay.
What?
Yep, that's in Orsay.
I don't remember seeing it.
Yeah, yeah, it's in
How did I
Orsay.
miss this? What?
It's hard. It's hard to remember everything in the Orsay
There's a
or
lot of
any
good
major
work in there,
museum, right?
right? Yeah.
Yeah, but that's him in the Orsay.
Yeah, we
That's
saw
the,
these. Dude,
Sorry, I've got
that's
duplicates
it.
of a few things.
No,
I'm
that's
sorry.
it.
But,
Dude, this was a great introduction. I'm really excited
I
about
hope
him.
that I hope that people go out and spend some time with him. There are a couple catalogs that are available of his work that are out of print now.
Mm-hmm.
There's one that, you can get for as little as $500. That's, a half an inch thick. But there's an Henri Martin museum
Mm-hmm.
that's about an hour north of Toulouse. I've never been to it, and my plan is to go to it and see it. It started when somebody who was a collector had collected dozens of his works and then said, I'm going to go to the town where he retired and turn a museum into it. And the state then started lending things to it. And so it's only, I think it's only 15 years old, this museum
Mm.
that's dedicated to him. I think that if you're in Toulouse, you know who he is. And I think that, of course, there are lots of people in Paris who know who he is because he did the assembly room that people have been in. But the problem with that assembly room is that it becomes part of the furniture almost, right? So
Mm-hmm.
you don't really see it that way, and it's not really representative of him, but it is an astounding execute. His skill set is unbelievable in that work. I just think
Mm.
that you can still go out and buy an Henri Martin for $15,000 to $30,000.
You're
You
kidding
can
me.
buy one of his works at auction. Yeah, they come to auction on a regular basis.
See,
There's
that's what
several
I'm
that are coming
talking
up to
about.
auction
Why?
right now.
Why? That doesn't make any sense to me. I mean, I get how economics works, supply and demand, blah blah blah. But that's just wild. How some people rise to
He
the
is,
top and some fall to the bottom.
I mean, he doesn't die. I mean, think about this.
Well, the bottom's like stretch, but yeah.
He's born in 1860, which is 3 years before Sorolla is born.
Mm-hmm.
And he dies in 1943 during the World War II. So
So
he
he's 83.
he's not he's living during this time when his work has become very out of style because modernism with an abstraction has become the de facto art form. When he dies, the most successful artist of the era is Picasso.
Oh, that
And
makes
so
sense.
you're looking at
And is he
an
still doing
artist who,
impressionism at this point?
yeah, and he's moved to the countryside, and he doesn't really need to make a living selling work like he did before. So the work that we saw that is these very country scenes are his works of passion that he's doing for his own private enjoyment. He's no longer has to do he's no longer being commissioned to do the large scale works. Those ended about 1910 and with the onset of World War One. So the state no longer has
Mm.
money to really pay for people like him. And he lives out World War One in his 60s, 70s, and 80s, World War and World War II in the countryside painting privately in a style that is now out of fashion.
Mm. Yeah.
So the question is to, why isn't he as well known? Well, because times changed. But I think that we're turning the page now, and I think you and I are part of this with these discussions about these artists. Is we're turning a page where we're no longer thinking about movements as being so important and having to categorize artists and whether they're in fashion or out of fashion. We just are looking at artists who created amazing work.
Mm-hmm.
I had a friend who we know, Vern Swanson. He was one of my mentors.
Mm-hmm.
And we were at an auction together one day where Lawrence Almatadama's Cleopatra, which is one of his best works, was bought. And it's this very beautiful, classically informed work of Cleopatra that was bought for like $20 million. I may be getting the amount wrong.
Mm-hmm.
At an auction one day. And the next day for $30 million, and Henri Matisse was bought by the same collector for $30 million. And so you had something that was unthinkable, which was, here's a collector who's buying a classical academic work and a Matisse at the same time, and not making a distinction between one was good or in fashion and the other wasn't. And I think that's what's going to happen with Henri Martin over time, is that we're going to look at these guys just by their quality, not whether or not they were in or out of fashion, right? That's a thing that, like, there may be a day when people buy Picasso and Martin and look at them with the same awe, right? As collectors, and be like, oh, how did we miss Martin at the time? But now we recognize how good he was.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, that's great. That's exciting. Yeah, who knows? Maybe you and I will make a difference. Mostly you, by bringing these to our attention. Anyway, you're the best, man. Thanks again for doing it.
Buddy.
We'll talk to you
You're
soon.
welcome.
All right.
Okay,
later.
Ciao.
Thanks for tuning in to the Undraped Artist Podcast. If you enjoyed it, subscribe. And if you could, leave a comment or review. That really helps the channel. Please share the show with your friends, and if you're feeling generous, consider a monthly donation at theundrapedartist.com. Thanks again for watching. We'll see you next week.